The night New Shanghai's sky turned green was the night James Chen's world shattered. He stood at his daughter Maya's bedroom window, staring at the haunting emerald aurora that shouldn't exist on Earth. His calloused fingers traced the scorched pattern on the windowsill, a signature he recognized from his 15 years in the Space Marine Corps. Cracks in technology. They had taken his daughter. The local police drone hovered uselessly behind him, its monotonous voice reciting standard protocols. Mr. Chin, please understand that intersystem kidnapping cases require a minimum 48-hour waiting period before. James crushed the drone's transmitter in his fist. He didn't need bureaucratic procedures. He needed his daughter back. Maya's room told the story of the struggle. Her quantum physics homework still glowed on the hollow display, half-finished calculations hanging in the air like frozen thoughts. Her prized collection of alien artifacts, legally acquired from her father's diplomatic missions, lay scattered across the floor. The anti-gravity generator he'd given her for her 16th birthday 3 months ago was missing. They'd known what they were looking for. James accessed his neural implant, the one piece of military hardware he'd kept after retiring. Display Maya's biosignal. The response was immediate. Signal lost at 2,147 hours. Current location, unknown. His daughter's vital signs, monitored through the small chip he'd insisted she have implanted, had vanished precisely when that green aurora appeared. He moved methodically through the room, his engineer's mind cataloging every detail. The scorch marks formed a perfect hexagon, cracks in transport technology, but an older model. The kidnappers weren't military. They were using surplus gear. Criminal organizations often bought deprecated cracks in tech through the black market. His neural implant chirped. A message from Admiral Zhang, his former commanding officer. James, the bureaucrats are already trying to bury this. They're calling it a random disappearance. But I know what you're seeing. Those energy signatures match a series of abductions across 3 systems. Someone's collecting human teenagers. I'm sending you what I can, but officially I never contacted you. Data flooded his implant, shipping manifests, criminal profiles, suspected trafficking routes. The Admiral had broken a dozen regulations sharing this information. James felt a fierce gratitude even as his stomach churned at the implications. This wasn't random. Maya had been targeted. He opened his personal vault, hidden behind a quantum-locked panel. Inside lay the tools of his former life, a chameleonic combat suit that could adapt to any environment, a neural disruptor that could incapacitate most known species, and his modified pulse rifle. Equipment that was strictly illegal for civilians. As he suited up, his home AI spoke softly. Sir, I feel compelled to remind you that vigilante actions across system boundaries carry a minimum sentence of deactivate house monitoring, James commanded. The AI fell silent. He wouldn't need it where he was going. His neural implant processed the Admiral's data, projecting possible trajectories. The kidnapper's ship would need to make at least 3 jumps to clear Earth's security net. Their first stop would be the Centauri trading hub, a lawless port where any cargo could vanish into the black market's endless appetite. James activated his suit's atmospheric seals and checked his weapons. The pulse rifle hummed to life, recognizing his genetic signature. In the distance, sirens wailed, the police finally responding to the abduction alert. Too late. Far too late. He accessed his secret account, the one not even Maya knew about. Emergency funds, enough to buy information or bribe officials across 3 systems. He'd hoped never to need it. Transfer all assets to anonymous crypto chain, he ordered. The transaction completed instantly, untraceable. As law enforcement vehicles descended toward his home, James Chen activated the personal teleporter he'd modified for exactly this scenario. The device was illegal in 17 systems, and using it would alert every security force in the sector. He didn't care. The green aurora still painted the sky as he took one last look at Maya's room. On her desk sat the hologram of her mother, Sarah, who died in the First Contact War. I promised to protect her, he whispered to the image. I'm keeping that promise. The teleporter hummed. In 30 seconds, the authorities would breach his home. In 45, they'd discover his illegal equipment. In 60, they'd realize that a former space marine with combat experience had gone rogue. But by then, James Chin would be gone, leaving behind only a message in Maya's quantum physics homework. "I'm coming for you, sweetheart. And heaven help anyone who stands in my way." His finger pressed the teleporter's activation switch. As his body dissolved into quantum particles, James Chin made a silent vow. He would tear apart every criminal organization, every trafficking ring, every corrupt official between here and the edge of known space. He would show the galaxy why taking a human child, why taking his child, was the last mistake they would ever make. The green aurora faded, leaving behind an empty room and the first whispers of a story that would shake 3 star systems to their core. The story of an Earth father who would rewrite the rules of interstellar society to save his daughter. The hunt had begun. The Centauri trading hub hung in space like a twisted metal spider, its dozen docking arms constantly moving to accommodate the endless flow of ships. James Chin watched from the shadows of a maintenance corridor as another group of Kraxan merchants passed, their crystalline bodies reflecting the hub's harsh lighting. His chameleonic suit had perfectly mimicked the corridor's grimy walls for the past 6 hours while he observed the patterns of movement through the station. His neural implant continuously processed data, mapping every security patrol, every shifty-eyed trader, every suspicious transaction. The implant's enhanced processing had been military-grade once. Now, after his modifications, it was something else entirely. Something that would have earned him a life sentence if Earth authorities discovered it. A notification flashed in his vision. Maya's biosignal had pinged weakly 2 levels below, then vanished again. She was here. Or had been, recently enough that traces of her neural signature lingered in the station's background radiation. "Track that signature," he sub-vocalized. His implant overlaid a ghostly trail through the station's layout. The path led to one of the hub's notorious, gray markets, places where anything could be bought or sold, no questions asked. James moved silently through the maintenance shafts, his suit adapting to each new environment. The station's underbelly was a maze of forgotten corridors and abandoned sections, but his military training and engineers' understanding of station architecture made him invisible among the pipes and power conduits. He emerged into a dimly lit marketplace where species from across known space haggled over goods both legal and forbidden. A massive Droken arms dealer argued with a spindly Vex over weapon modifications. A cluster of Meridian data brokers floated near a stall selling neural enhancers. And there, in a shadowy corner, stood 3 Kraxan traders with telltale green energy signatures matching the aurora from Earth. James activated his neural disruptor's targeting system. One shot could incapacitate all 3. But he needed information first. His implant analyzed their security, standard personal shields, nothing military-grade. Their weapons were expensive but civilian models. These weren't elite operators. They were middlemen. He approached their stall, his suit now mimicking the appearance of a wealthy Droken merchant. "I hear you recently acquired some interesting merchandise from Earth," he said in perfect Kraxan trade speak. The largest Kraxan, his crystalline form tinged with greed green, leaned forward. "Earth merchandise is rare. Expensive. What exactly interests you?" "Young specimens," James replied, forcing his voice to remain steady as rage burned in his chest. "I heard you had one. Female. Specifically, one with knowledge of quantum physics." The Kraxan's crystalline bodies flickered with warning colors. The leader's hand moved toward a concealed weapon. "You're very well informed. Too well informed." James moved before they could react. His neural disruptor fired 3 precisely calibrated bursts. The Kraxans froze, their crystalline forms vibrating at a frequency that trapped them in a feedback loop. To observers, it would look like an ordinary trade discussion. "Let me be clear," James said softly, his Droken disguise dissolving to reveal his true form. "That human you took? She's my daughter. You're going to tell me where she is, or I'm going to demonstrate exactly how much damage a human father can do to crystalline life forms." The leader's voice crackled with fear. "We were just transporters." The girl was already sold, high-priority contract from the Nexian Syndicate. They're moving her through the Krell system. James's implant confirmed the Kraxen was telling the truth. The Nexian Syndicate, one of the largest criminal organizations in known space. They specifically trafficked in specialized merchandise, beings with unique talents or knowledge. Please, the Kraxen begged, we were just following orders. Like the ones who were just following orders when they killed my wife in the First Contact War? James asked quietly. He adjusted his neural disruptor's frequency. Here's a physics lesson for you. Crystalline structures have resonant frequencies. Find the right one. He fired. The Kraxens shattered, their forms collapsing into glittering dust that would be indistinguishable from the market's everyday grime. No bodies. No evidence. Just another mysterious disappearance in a place full of them. But James had already moved on, his suit blending him back into the shadows. His implant was processing the new data, plotting courses to the Krell system. The Nexian Syndicate was about to learn a lesson about human nature that would shake their criminal empire to its foundations. In his mind, he saw Maya's face, remembered helping her with her quantum physics homework just days ago. She'd been explaining a theory about parallel universes, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. In some universe, she'd said, everything works out perfectly. Then that's the universe we'll make this one, he'd replied. Now, as he moved through the station's shadows toward his hidden ship, James Chun prepared for war. The Centauri trading hub had given him his first real lead. The Nexian Syndicate had taken his daughter to study her mind, to exploit her brilliant understanding of quantum physics. They would soon discover they'd made a catastrophic error in judgment. They thought they were dealing with simple merchandise. Instead, they had started a chain reaction that would tear their organization apart. Because they hadn't just taken a human child, they had taken a father's daughter. And James Chun was about to show 3 star systems exactly what that meant. The Krell system's asteroid belt was a maze of hidden ports and secret facilities, each one carved into the rock like wasps' nests in ancient wood. James Chun's modified stealth ship drifted between the spinning rocks, running dark except for passive sensors. His neural implant processed the electromagnetic emissions from each asteroid, building a map of the invisible criminal empire that had taken his daughter. 3 weeks had passed since the Centauri hub. 3 weeks of methodically working his way up the Nexian Syndicate's chain of command. Each interrogation, each broken operation, each destroyed facility had brought him closer to Maya. And with each step, the underground had learned to fear the shadow that stalked their operations. His implant flagged an incoming transmission, heavily encrypted. From Admiral Zhang, James, your actions have caught the attention of the Galactic Council. They're calling you, the Ghost. 7 major trafficking operations destroyed. Hundreds of slaves freed. The criminal underworld is in chaos. But be careful, you're making powerful enemies. James allowed himself a grim smile. Good. Let them be afraid. Let them know what happens when they take a human child. His sensors picked up unusual energy readings from a massive asteroid ahead. The rock was supposedly uninhabited, but thermal imaging revealed vast chambers inside. More importantly, his implant detected traces of quantum computation, the kind Maya would need for her physics work. He guided his ship into a hidden landing bay, his chameleonic hull matching the asteroid's surface perfectly. As he stepped out, his combat suit analyzed the atmosphere, breathable, but with high concentrations of neural suppressants. They were trying to keep their merchandise docile. James activated his suit's filtration system and moved deeper into the facility. His neural implant interfaced with the local security network, child's play compared to military systems. Camera feeds appeared in his vision, showing corridors filled with holding cells. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species, all with special talents or knowledge. All waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. In one cell, a young Meridian mathematician solved complex equations in the air with her bioluminescent tentacles. In another, a Vex weapons designer assembled and disassembled prototype guns with lightning speed. This wasn't just a trafficking operation, it was a think tank of stolen minds. An alert flashed in his vision. His implant had detected Maya's neural signature, stronger now. She was here, 3 levels down. But reaching her wouldn't be simple. The facility's security was impressive: automated defense systems, neural dampening fields, and squads of heavily armed guards. James accessed the facility's environmental controls. Time to remind these criminals why humans were the most dangerous species in known space. He triggered a cascading failure in the life support systems. Alarms blared as atmosphere began venting from specific sections, herding guards toward predetermined choke points. Then he released a modified version of the neural suppressant gas, one that would affect the guards, but not their prisoners. Chaos erupted as security forces found their neural implants malfunctioning, their coordination shattered. In the confusion, James moved like a ghost through the facility, his suit adapting to match walls, shadows, and even guard uniforms when necessary. He reached the high-security section where they kept their most valuable assets. Through a reinforced window, he finally saw her. Maya sat cross-legged in a sterile white room, surrounded by holoprojections of quantum equations. Her captors had her working on something big, possibly weapons research, given the military applications of quantum physics. But something was wrong. Maya's movements were too precise, her focus too absolute. They had her drugged, using her brilliant mind while keeping her consciousness suppressed. James's rage, cold and controlled until now, blazed into something terrible. He accessed the facility's mainframe through a backdoor he'd planted earlier. Time for a lesson in chaos theory, he subvocalized, initiating the program he'd prepared. Throughout the asteroid, systems began to fail. Not randomly, but in a precise sequence that amplified the destruction. Power regulators overloaded. Gravity generators reversed. Emergency doors sealed and unsealed in patterns that trapped security forces and freed prisoners. In the confusion, James breached Maya's cell. She looked up at him with drugged eyes, not fully recognizing her father through the haze of suppressants. The quantum tunnel effect, she mumbled, requires an understanding of parallel probabilities. I know, sweetheart, he said softly, administering the counteragent he'd prepared. You can tell me all about it once we're safe. But before he could reach her, a new alarm sounded. His implant flashed a warning, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. The Nexian Syndicate had called in reinforcements. Through the facility's windows, James watched as heavily armed vessels surrounded the asteroid. A voice boomed through the station's speakers, speaking in the harsh tones of High Nexian, to the human ghost who has been disrupting our operations. We have you trapped. Surrender now, and we may let your daughter live. James held Maya close as his implant calculated options, scanning ship positions and weapon capabilities. The Syndicate thought they had him cornered. They thought superior numbers and firepower would be enough. They were about to learn another lesson about human nature. About what a father would do to protect his child. And about why, throughout human history, the most dangerous place in any universe was between a parent and their offspring. Hold on tight, Maya, he whispered, activating the next phase of his plan. Things are about to get interesting. The asteroid's secret weapon, the one he'd spent 3 weeks programming while hunting through the criminal underground, was about to show the Nexian Syndicate exactly how much damage one human could do to their entire operation. And this was only the beginning. The Nexian warships hung in the void like predatory creatures, their weapons trained on the asteroid facility. Inside, James Chen held his semi-conscious daughter while his neural implant executed the most ambitious hack of his career. Maya stirred in his arms, the counteragent slowly clearing the drugs from her system. Dad, she whispered, her brilliant mind finally breaking through the chemical haze. You came for me. Always, James replied, his fingers flying across holographic interfaces while keeping Maya secure. But right now, I need you to wake up completely. Because we're about to do something impossible, and I could use your help with the quantum mechanics. The Nexian commander's voice boomed through the facility again. Your situation is hopeless, human. Our ships have enough firepower to reduce this asteroid to dust. Surrender now. James smiled. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. His weeks of hunting through their organization hadn't just been about finding Maya. Every system he'd hacked, every facility he'd infiltrated, had been preparation for this moment. Maya, He said urgently, "Remember your theory about quantum entanglement across parallel probability spaces? The one you were working on when they took you." Maya's eyes sharpened, her incredible mind engaging despite the lingering effects of the drugs. The multidimensional quantum tunnel effect? Dad, that was theoretical. The energy requirements alone would be exactly what we have right now, James finished, gesturing at his neural implants displays. Look around you. What do you see? Maya's eyes widened as she took in the facility's quantum research labs. They've been having me work on quantum weapons technology. The power systems, the computational arrays, they're all calibrated for quantum manipulation on a massive scale. Exactly. And for the past 3 weeks, I've been reprogramming every quantum-capable system in the Nexian Syndicate's network. Now, I need you to tell me if my math is right. He projected the equations he'd developed, complex formulae describing quantum states, across multiple probability spaces. Maya studied them, her mind working at speeds that had made her both a prodigy and a target. Dad, this is brilliant. You're not trying to break out. You're trying to break everything. Can it work? Maya's fingers traced modifications in the air, adjusting variables with intuitive genius. Yes, but the energy pulse will cascade through every quantum-linked system in range. Their ships, their weapons, their neural networks, everything will experience quantum probability collapse simultaneously. And the effects? In theory, every system they have will try to exist in all possible states at once. The result would be chaos, James finished. Complete technological breakdown across their entire fleet. But only their fleet, because their quantum encryption protocols are unique to their organization. Outside, the Nexian ships moved closer, their weapons charging. Inside the facility, freed prisoners gathered around James and Maya, drawn to the hope they represented. The young Meridian mathematician, the Vex weapons designer, hundreds of beings who had been treated as commodities rather than people. One problem, Maya said, still working on the equations. The quantum cascade will affect this facility too. All these research labs, all this technology, will be destroyed, James nodded. Along with any record of your quantum theories, the knowledge they wanted to exploit will be lost. Maya met his eyes, understanding the choice he was offering her. Her life's work, her brilliant theories, against the freedom of hundreds. It wasn't really a choice at all. Do it, she said. James's fingers flew across the holographic controls one last time. Throughout the facility, quantum research systems spun up to maximum power. In space, the Nexian ships detected the energy spike, but too late to realize its significance. Last chance, human, the Nexian commander transmitted. Surrender, or be destroyed. James lifted Maya to her feet, supporting her as she shook off the last effects of the drugs. To the gathered prisoners, he called out, "Everyone find something to hold on to. The laws of physics are about to take a vacation." He activated the program. Reality shuddered. The quantum cascade ripped through space like a tide of probability made manifest. On the Nexian ships, every quantum-based system, from weapons to life support to artificial gravity, tried to exist in all possible states simultaneously. Warships spun out of control as their navigation systems calculated every possible course at once. Neural networks overloaded as they processed infinite potential thoughts. Inside the facility, research labs exploded in showers of sparks as quantum computers destructively resolved wave functions. But James had planned for this, using the chaos to mask the activation of emergency teleporters he'd hidden throughout the asteroid. Groups of prisoners vanished in flashes of light, transported to safe locations across the system. Ships he'd arranged through underground contacts he'd made during his hunt, waiting to carry them to freedom. The Nexian fleet hung helpless in space, their mighty warships reduced to drifting hulks by the quantum cascade. Their technological advantage, built on stolen knowledge and quantum research, had become their greatest weakness. "Time to go," James said, holding Maya close as he activated the last teleporter. "I have a ship waiting. One that doesn't rely on quantum technology." As they vanished from the disintegrating facility, Maya looked up at her father. You destroyed their entire organization's technological infrastructure, freed hundreds of prisoners, and rewrote the laws of quantum physics. All to save me. James smiled at his brilliant daughter. That's what dads do, sweetheart. Though I admit, most father-daughter rescue missions don't usually involve quite this much quantum mechanics. Behind them, the asteroid facility began to break apart, its quantum reactors overloading. The Nexian Syndicate's greatest research center, reduced to scattered atoms in space. But James Chen had accomplished his mission. He had his daughter back. And the underground criminal empires of 3 star systems had learned a vital lesson about humanity. Never, ever, take a human's child. Especially if that human is both a father and an engineer who understands quantum mechanics. The war wasn't over. The Syndicate's leadership would still need to be dealt with. But Phase 1 of James Chen's plan was complete. And Phase 2 promised to be even more interesting. The Nexian Syndicate's headquarters floated in the toxic atmosphere of Helios Prime, a fortress of black metal and forbidden technology rising above clouds of corrosive gas. In a secure command center near its peak, the Syndicate's Council of 9 watched recordings of their empire crumbling. James Chen's attack had done more than destroy their quantum-based technology. It had exposed their entire operation to the galaxy. The freed prisoners were telling their stories. Corrupt officials were being arrested. 3 star systems worth of carefully built criminal infrastructure was falling apart. And now, the architect of their destruction was coming for them. Impossible, growled Supreme Director Vexthor, his crystalline form pulsing with rage-red light. One human could not have done this. Could not have predicted every move, countered every defense. That's where you're wrong, came a voice from the shadows. James Chen stepped into view, his chameleonic suit shifting from perfect camouflage to its natural state. You never understood what you were dealing with. Maya emerged beside him, her quantum tablet projecting complex equations into the air. The council chambers erupted in chaos as guards raised weapons, but James remained calm. I wouldn't, he said softly. Maya, show them. Maya's fingers danced across her tablet. Throughout the fortress, systems began to respond to her commands. Security protocols that the council thought unbreakable bent to her will. You wanted her for her quantum physics expertise, James continued. You thought you could just take her, use her brilliant mind for your weapons research. But you never asked yourselves why she was so good at it. Why a human teenager could understand things your best scientists couldn't grasp. Maya smiled, looking exactly like her mother in that moment. Because Dad's been teaching me since I was little. Not just physics, but how to think like an engineer. How to see the patterns in everything. While you were drugging her and forcing her to work on quantum weapons, James said, his voice hardening, she was actually solving a much bigger problem. Show them, sweetheart. Maya's quantum tablet displayed a new set of equations. The council members recoiled as they recognized the implications. That's right, James nodded. She wasn't building you a quantum weapon. She was creating a quantum virus. One that's been spreading through your secure networks ever since you took her. One that's given us control of every system in this fortress. Supreme Director Vexthor's crystalline form vibrated with fury. Kill them. Kill them now. Guards opened fire, but their weapons didn't respond. Defense turrets remained silent. Shield generators stayed dormant. 3 weeks, James continued calmly. 3 weeks of me hunting through your organization, apparently searching for Maya. But really, I was planting quantum-entangled nodes throughout your network. Each one linked to the virus Maya was designing while pretending to work on your weapons project. And now, Maya added, her tablet displaying streams of data. Every piece of technology you own is running our code. Every secret, every transaction, every corrupt deal and stolen credit, it's all being broadcast across all 3 systems. The council members lunged from their seats, but force fields snapped into place, trapping them. Not regular force fields, quantum probability fields that Maya had designed, impossible to predict or hack. This is the difference between humans and your kind, James said, walking slowly around the trapped council. You see technology as a tool for power. We see it as an extension of ourselves. You took my daughter because you wanted to use her mind. But you never understood that her mind wasn't just hers. It was shaped by love, by family, by everything that makes us human. Outside the fortress, ships were appearing. Not criminal vessels or corrupt security forces, but the combined fleets of 3 systems' legitimate authorities. The council watched in horror as their sanctuary was surrounded. "We didn't just break your organization," Maya explained, still working on her tablet. "We rewrote its underlying quantum structure. Every system you own is now permanently linked to law enforcement networks. Every transaction you make will be tracked. Every communication monitored." "It's over," James said simply. "Your empire is finished. And do you want to know the funny thing? If you hadn't taken my daughter, none of this would have happened. You could have gone on stealing and corrupting and destroying lives. But you made one simple mistake." He leaned close to the force field containing Supreme Director Vexthor. "You thought humans were just another species to exploit. You never asked yourselves why, throughout history, we've been the ones to survive every catastrophe, overcome every obstacle, defy every limitation placed on us." Maya walked to her father's side, their matching expressions showing the genetic link between their brilliant minds. "It's because we have something worth fighting for," she said. "Something worth changing entire systems for." "Family," James finished. The fortress shook as law enforcement ships began their approach. Throughout 3 star systems, the quantum virus was exposing decades of criminal enterprises. The Council of 9 watched their life's work dissolve into quantum probability streams, their power evaporating like toxic gas in Helios Prime's atmosphere. And at the center of it all stood a father and daughter, their combined brilliance having accomplished what entire governments couldn't: the complete dismantling of the galaxy's most powerful criminal organization. "Ready to go home?" James asked Maya. She nodded, but paused to make one final adjustment to her equations. Throughout the fortress, quantum probability fields solidified, ensuring none of the council could escape. "Now we can go," she said. "I have so much homework to catch up on." James laughed, putting his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Behind them, the Council of 9 raged impotently in their quantum cages, their empire in ruins, destroyed by the 2 things they'd never thought to factor into their equations: human ingenuity and a father's love. 3 months after the fall of the Nexian Syndicate, James Chen stood at the window of his rebuilt new Shanghai home, watching the sunset paint the sky in natural colors. No artificial auroras, no signs of illegal quantum activity. Maya sat at her desk nearby, working on a new set of equations that would help secure interstellar communications against future criminal organizations. His neural implant pinged with another update from Admiral Zhang. The aftermath of their actions was still reshaping society across 3 star systems. The quantum virus Maya had created had exposed not just the Syndicate's operations, but entire networks of corruption reaching into the highest levels of government. "The Galactic Council is still processing the changes," Zhang's message read. "Over 3,000 trafficking victims rescued. Hundreds of corrupt officials arrested. And now they're debating making your daughter's quantum security protocols the new standard for interstellar communications. Not bad for a month's work, old friend." James smiled, remembering the chaos they'd caused. The Syndicate's leadership remained in quantum containment, their very cells held in probability stasis by Maya's brilliant calculations. Their vast criminal empire had been transformed into a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened when you underestimated humanity's capacity for both vengeance and innovation. "Dad?" Maya's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "I've been thinking about something." He turned to find her surrounded by holographic projections, quantum formulae spinning in complex patterns around her head. She looked so much like her mother in that moment, the same intense focus, the same brilliant light in her eyes. "What is it, sweetheart?" "All those people we freed from the Syndicate's facilities, the mathematicians, the scientists, the engineers. They were all taken because they had special knowledge or abilities. Just like me." James nodded, seeing where her thoughts were leading. In the weeks since their return, they'd received messages from many of the former captives. Each one had a similar story: brilliant minds targeted for exploitation, lives disrupted by criminal greed. "I want to help them," Maya continued. Not just with the quantum security protocols, but with something bigger. What if we created a network? A way for people like us to protect each other, to share knowledge safely without fear of it being stolen or abused. James watched his daughter proudly. Even after everything she'd been through, her first thought was how to help others. What did you have in mind? Maya's fingers danced through the holographic equations, reshaping them into a new pattern. The quantum entanglement principles we used against the syndicate, we could modify them. Create a secure communication network that operates outside normal channels. A way for brilliant minds to connect and collaborate without making themselves targets. Her tablet projected a larger display, showing how the network would function. It was elegant in its complexity, using the same principles that had brought down a criminal empire to now protect and unite people. The Nexian syndicate tried to use knowledge as a weapon, Maya explained. But what if we could turn it into a shield instead? A notification flashed in James's vision. Admiral Zhang again, but this time marked urgent. He opened the message and felt his breath catch. The Galactic Council just passed the Human Protection Act, Zhang's message read. Inspired by your actions, they've made it a capital offense to abduct or traffic in human beings. 3 systems worth of laws, changed because one father refused to give up on his daughter. James shared the message with Maya, watching her eyes widen as she read it. See, he said softly. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest actions. Like a quantum particle affecting an entire system, Maya agreed, her scientist's mind always finding the perfect analogy. She stood and hugged her father tightly. Thank you for coming for me. Always, he whispered. Though next time, maybe we try to change galactic society without the whole kidnapping thing? Maya laughed, the sound filling their home with warmth. Outside, the stars were becoming visible in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the systems they'd changed were still adjusting to their new reality. Criminal empires had fallen, corrupt officials had been exposed, and thousands of lives had been freed from bondage. But here, in a quiet home in New Shanghai, none of that mattered as much as this simple moment between father and daughter. Their shared brilliance had shaken the foundations of 3 star systems, but their bond had been the real force behind it all. James's neural implant pinged one final time. A message from one of the freed captives, a young Meridian mathematician. They thought they could own knowledge, control it, use it as a weapon. But you showed us something stronger. How knowledge shared between parent and child, passed down with love, can change everything. Thank you for reminding the galaxy that humans aren't just clever. They're clever for a reason. Maya was already back at her desk, working on her new project. The quantum equations danced around her like stars, each one representing a potential connection, a life that could be protected, a mind that could be freed to explore its full potential. James watched her work, his engineer's mind seeing the elegant solutions in her calculations, his father's heart swelling with pride. They had done more than survive an ordeal, they had transformed it into an opportunity for positive change. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other brilliant minds were already reaching out, connecting through the quantum network Maya was building. The Nexian syndicate had tried to imprison knowledge, to contain and control it. Instead, they had inadvertently helped create something new, a galaxy where knowledge flowed freely, protected by the very principles they had tried to exploit. All because they made the mistake of taking one human father's daughter. All because they never understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in our technology or our intelligence, but in the bonds that connected us to each other. All because of love.